Okay, welcome back to another example of an SAT essay and how to analyze it. A rhetorical analysis of a persuasive argument. Here are the instructions. Okay, remember that they want you to write an essay in which you explain how Paul Bogard builds his argument. How does he build the argument with rhetorical devices, so on and so forth, to persuade his audience that natural darkness should be preserved. So they're giving you really the topic here. The thesis is he's persuading his audience that darkness should be preserved. We need more darkness. In your essay, analyze how Bogard uses one or more of the features in the directions that precede the passage. We'll talk about that in a second. Or features of your own choice. So you can go out of that little box and use features of your own choice and tell us how he built this argument. To strengthen the logic and persuasiveness of his argument. Be sure that you analyze, that your analysis focuses on the most relevant features of the passage. Okay, and look at this part right here. Your essay should not explain whether you agree with Paul Bogard's claims, but rather explain how Bogard builds an argument to persuade his audience. So how did Paul Bogard build an argument to persuade his audience with rhetorical devices? Once again, they don't care. If I pop back up here. Okay, remember, evidence is ethos, facts are ethos, claims are ethos. They don't care about ethos. They want you to tell how ethos was used. Reasoning, which is logic or logos, to develop ideas and to connect claims and evidence. Once again, they don't care about logos. They care about you telling the reader how logos and logic was used. Okay. Stylistic or persuasive elements such as word choice or appeals to emotion, which is pathos, to add power to the ideas expressed. Okay, how did he use persuasive ideas to express and build his argument? So how did he use ethos, logos, and pathos to build his argument? All right, so let's take a quick little look at this one really quick and break it down. I'll give you a copy to read. This is a classic, Let There Be Dark, Paul Bogard, 2012. He just goes on and starts with the first technique, an anecdote. An anecdote is a short story. It's a great tool to catch someone's attention is a story. You can teach through anecdotes. You can give a lesson through an anecdote. Instead of yelling, you can try an anecdote. So you can already tell it's an anecdote because he's telling a story. At my family's cabin on the Minnesota lake, I knew woods so dark that my hands disappeared before my eyes. I knew night skies in which meteors left smoky trails across sugary spreads of stars. That's imagery right there. But now, when 8 out of 10 children born in the United States will never know a sky dark enough for the Milky Way, I worry is emotion. We are rapidly losing night's natural darkness before realizing its worth. He had this anecdote to lead to his thesis statement, which should be right here, the last line of the intro paragraph. This winter solstice, December 21st, isn't it? As we cheer the day's gradual movement back toward light, because remember on December 21st, the days get a little bit longer. Let us also remember the irreplaceable value of darkness. So this thesis statement right here at the end of the intro is telling us that this paper is going to be about Bogard persuading his audience that he wants to value darkness. Okay, here's his first point. All life evolved around the steady rhythm of bright days and dark nights. Okay, we get that. Paragraph 2, he's going to allude to the World Health Organization. That's an allusion you can talk about in your essay. Already, the World Health Organization classifies working the night shift as a probable human carcinogen, and the American Medical Association, another illusion. Anytime you hear one of these big fancy corporations or names or organizations, they're allusions to credible sources, which you can throw in your paper. The American Medical Association has voiced its unanimous support for light pollution reduction efforts and glare reduction efforts at both the national and state levels. As a matter of fact, as kids are on their computers as a connection to a current issue, you're on your computers and phones all day. How's it affecting you? Okay, he says that is not natural. Let me look to the concluding sentence of this paragraph. to sum it up, whether we work at night or simply take our tablets, notebooks, and smartphones to bed, There isn't a place for this much artificial light in our lives. So we kind of get the point here between this paragraph and this paragraph. There was an illusion in here. He's kind of being logical. So an illusion would fall under the category, I could say it is reasoning or logic. It's illogical to cite somebody credible. He could have said, the dude down the street was saying that, and the dude down the street could have been right. But it's more effective to say, to allude to a credible source. Already, the World Health Organization and the American Medical Association, and so on and so forth. Okay, next paragraph, let's see what kind of technique he is using here to build his argument. So I'm going to look at the topic sentence, and that's going to summarize the rest of this paragraph here. So the rest of the world depends on darkness as well, including nocturnal and crepuscular species of birds, insects, mammals, fish, and reptiles. So by reading this topic sentence, he's going to talk about how animals and insects and mammals and fish and reptiles also need some form of darkness. And he kind of goes on and talks about and gives some data here. So data, there are 400 species, 80% of the world's flora. That would be data, which falls underneath the category of, okay, evidence, facts, which is going to be ethos. All right. I like this one. Light pollution is like a bulldozer of the night, wrecking habitat and disrupting ecosystems several billion years in the making. The bulldozer of the night is powerful language that's a little bit more metaphorical imagery, so on and so forth. He's using a lot of that. Okay, let's look at this topic sentence really quickly. In today's crowded, louder, more fast-paced world, night's darkness can provide solitude, quiet, and stillness, qualities increasingly in short supply. So one more time, this is an example of parallelism. So in today's crowded, louder, more fast-paced world, night's darkness can provide solitude, quiet, and stillness. Okay, that's parallelism because he has 3 adjectives here and 3 here. Increasingly in short supply. So we already know what this means is that by reading this topic sentence, in today's crowded, louder, and more fast-paced world, night's darkness can provide solitude, quiet, and stillness, qualities increasingly in short supply. So solitude, quiet, and stillness, crowded, louder, more fast-paced. I could have said the biggest, the baddest, the toughest is fighting against the most arrogant, proud, and overrated. Okay? So this paragraph, in today's crowded, louder, more fast-paced world, night's darkness can provide solitude, quiet, and stillness, qualities increasingly in short supply. So night can provide solitude. That's what this paragraph is about. Here's another allusion to Vincent van Gogh and his Starry Night. Okay, yet all over the world, our nights are growing brighter. This is a counter-argument over here. All right, he's going to use some data here and talk about NASA here, give you some dates, and give the other side. That's a counter-argument. Then he's going to come back finally to his original idea as the last paragraph. It doesn't have to be this way. Okay, summing it up, it doesn't have to be this way. We don't need all of this comparing it to the counter-argument, artificial light. All right, and he goes on and so on and so forth. So let's look over here to what so write an essay in which Paul Bogard builds an argument to persuade his audience that natural darkness should be preserved. Okay, in your essay, analyze how Bogard uses one or more of the features in the directions that precede the passage. These are the directions that precede the passage: ethos, logos, pathos. All right. Let's go down a little bit. Your essay should not explain whether you agree with Bogard's claims, but rather explain how Bogard builds an argument to persuade his audience. Here's an example of, let's do like a 1. Let's see what like a 2-1-1 would be. This is like basically an E. Okay, this dude had 2 paragraphs. Just take a look at it. Not good. He talks about nothing in no manner how Bogard builds his essay. So let's forget that one. Let's go to a 4. Okay. A 4, you've got 1 paragraph here, 2 paragraphs, 3 paragraphs, 4 paragraphs. That's all you really need is 4 paragraphs. You can have 5, but 4 is enough. Okay, so over here, in response to our world's growing reliance on artificial light, writer Paul Bogard argues that natural darkness should be preserved in his article, Let There Be Dark. There's a typo here. He effectively builds his argument by using a personal anecdote, allusions to art. Okay, here's allusions to art. That's cool. In history and rhetorical questions. All right. So, paragraph number 1. Bogard starts off his article by recounting a personal story. A summer spent on a Minnesota lake where there was, quote, wood so dark that his hands disappeared before his eyes. Okay, in telling this brief anecdote, so this personal story is the first technique is an anecdote. Okay, he builds his argument for the preservation of natural darkness by reminiscing for his readers a first-hand encounter that proves irreplaceable value of darkness. Okay, this is not, even though this is pathos, all right, emotion, they don't care about pathos. They want to hear the word anecdote in story and give it an example. Okay, his next technique that this person put in here, Bogard's argument is also furthered by his use of allusion to art. So allusions to the Van Gogh Starry Nights and so on and so forth, the City of Lights and so on and so forth. So allusions is another technique that he used. References to credible sources, in this case, art. Okay. Finally, conclusion, transition. Bogard makes subtle yet efficient use of rhetorical questioning to persuade his audience that natural darkness is a preservation is essential. Okay, so basically he's talking about rhetorical questions. Rhetorical questions are just questions, like this one right here. What the vision of the night sky might inspire in each of us, in our children, in our grandchildren, we don't really know. A rhetorical question would be something along the lines of, what would happen if we didn't have an education? What would happen if we all just quit school and did our own thing? It makes you stop and think. It puts you on the offensive. You are in charge when you're asking the questions. So in a courtroom, if you're asking the questions, you're in charge. You're controlling the conversation. It's a technique. Okay, over here in the final concluding paragraph, not very long, as you can see, 3 lines. So, writing is a reaction to his disappointment that artificial light has largely permeated the presence of natural darkness. Paul Bogard argues that we must preserve true, unaffected darkness, and so on and so forth. He builds his claim by making use of a personal anecdote, allusions, and rhetorical question. All right, so let me go over here really quick. Let's check out a past student's paper. See if I can find it. How about this one? All right, persuasive analysis, essay analysis of darkness. Okay, so in Paul Bogard's Let There Be Dark, he builds his argument for his audience by using several literary devices and techniques to prove his point. He makes a very clear argument that darkness is a necessity to life and so on and so forth. The writer builds his argument with personal examples, organization, and sensory language. Okay. So the first device he uses to build his argument is personal examples, and she kind of lists them there. Okay. Organization, all the way down here. The second device that Bogard uses to build his argument is organization, and she kind of goes through that he uses article to present his argument and examples in order. I think that's pretty cool. This one, by the way, received an 18. Okay, sensory language is another one. All right, so let's go down here. The third and final device Bogard uses to build his argument is the usage of sensory language. Let's see what Michaela wrote back in 2017. Let's see here. Bogard uses a lot of sensory language and literary devices to bring his argument to life, such as metaphors and imagery. Okay, we got all that. And she gives an example. Light pollution, little typo here. I don't care about that. I don't really like this transition, but it works to end it. All in all, she's going to restate her main idea. Paul Bogard uses many literary devices and persuasive devices to grab his reader's attention and pull them to his side of the argument of reducing artificial light. Then she just kindly closes that out. So that's all you really need to do is very simple. I'll leave examples of both of these and we'll have a video response on this.